If it's an even match and I lost, that means that I am that much closer to like going up like a skill tier in this game. If I win and it's an even match, you're over the moon because you've conquered that hill. You've gotten to like the next level. And you've hopefully pulled that person up with you, because they also should have the same reaction that you have, is like, no, there's something here that I can get better at. And that's what I love about fighting games. Hello, I am technical designer Luis Fernando Sandrin, and you're watching Beyond the Pixel with Ken Hodge, digital artist.
What's up, guy?
Yeah, just keeping you up, keeping you on your toes. I mixed up the intro this time.
Cool. I can't actually hear the intro, so I never know what's going on.
All right, so this time we are gonna be fighting. We're gonna have some fighting words. We're gonna be taking on a whole genre this time. You and me versus a whole genre. Ken, are you ready for this?
So what's up?
So, fighting games. God, I didn't even know how to segue into this. Fighting games are video games. So I want to take some time to talk about fighting games, because I know it's an intimidating genre for a lot of people, and it's a genre that I know I love a lot. Ken, I know you also like fighting games to a certain amount of degree.
I like one fighting game. That's the cold facts of it.
It's
not that I don't like fighting games, but I am extremely interested in one and not so much the other ones.
And it's
I'm interested in what you have
right?
to say, though. It's Melee specific.
It's Melee specifically. Well, I'm hoping that like through this discussion, I can sort of bring you around to how you approach fight. Because Ken, talk to me about this. What makes you? Are you intimidated by fighting games?
No, I'm not intimidated by fighting games at all. Maybe earlier on, because in general, fighting games are hard. One on one v game, like 1v1 games are typically hard to get into. No, that hasn't been what's been keeping me invested. I don't want to knock fighting games. It's more that I haven't gotten enough knowledge about fighting games to be able to see through the surface of a number of fighting games.
That is a very common thing, though, because you do feel like there is this veneer across fighting games where like, of all the games, more so than Dark Souls, more so than any other game, there is a very strong barrier to entry there, because you have to sort of understand the genre that is unlike anything else, right? You go and approach a difficult game like Dark Souls, it is still a third-person action game. It is still like that kind of game that you are probably familiar with. If you look at it on the surface, it's almost no different than Zelda in a way. You're still running around, slashing things, and trying to find your way through a world, unlocking keys, and going through doors. Even though they're very different games, you sort of have this ground basis. Fighting games are so specific to themselves. It is unlike any other sort of genre that you can compare it to, much like racing games, right? Or is very different from any other type of thing.
Now, are you talking about fighting games as a whole, or are you talking about like the multiplayer side of it specifically? Or because it could be a bit of a different experience, single player.
To me, it's hard to separate those. To me, fighting games are always, and that's part of the daunting part of it, is that to me they are multiplayer driven games first. There's one versus one, you against another player, and that's sort of the appeal for them to me, right? It is this sort of competition. Wrong slideshow. It is this sort of competition that you don't have a team, you only have yourself. Most cases you don't have a team. It's purely yourself, your skill, your understanding of the game and its mechanics versus another player. And that's that's a very intimate sort of competition. And that's probably what makes it also intimidating. Especially in fighting games, is probably the game that you're going to lose at the most. While you're playing. You're probably going to lose more than you win for a very, 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 very long time. And in fact, probably for the rest of your life in playing the game. But
it wouldn't be fun if you didn't lose at some point. It wouldn't be like there wouldn't be the joy of fighting games
of the victory, right?
If you didn't lose, yeah.
It's the same with sort of Dark Souls, right? If it wasn't that challenge, if you weren't dying over and over, that success of when like you feel you've dialed that game in wouldn't exist. Except now it is purely dialing in almost your connection to like another person and how they play the game, and that's sort of like where my passion for fighting games comes from. It's that sort of bond you can have between game and player. And the way you both interact with a game like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna just pitch this over here because I'm kind of off screen. There we go. So that's sort of the pitch for fighting games for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's that sort of very, very long ceiling, very investment heavy, that can bring you closer to other players, that you can bond between them over this game. And that's something that I think fighting games can do very specifically, more so than other team-based competitive games, because it is purely involved in your skills and how you build them up and who you bring with you on that journey, right? Who is the person that like introduced you to this world, that you train with, that you spar with, and you bring that relationship with? Who is the person that's like so much better than you, and you're slowly getting better and getting close to their level? Who is the person who is going up with you, and you're rivals, and you're trading off victories, and you're both improving until you can like take on your entire neighborhood and no one can stop you to, because you've just mastered the game yourself? It is very singular in the types of not singular. It's very special in the type of experience you can get from no other game, really.
Yeah, it's interesting, at least in the Smash community, and I think it's very similar in other fighting games as well. It's very much a community game. Like, you don't really play any fighting game, at least the multiplayer side, in a vacuum, because there's nothing to keep driving you. Like, if you were to just pick up Street Fighter 4 by yourself and you were just playing like the computer, there's no drive to get better. But then when you play someone else who has these tricks, and you're playing against like an intelligent being where you're constantly trying to like outsmart them, fighting games offer kind of this very, very intimate level of connection with your opponent that other games don't offer. Like if you take League of Legends, for example, like the map is so large and most of the gameplay revolves, like a bit of the gameplay revolves around your interaction with the other players, but a large portion of it also revolves around you just doing like regular creeps or buying items or whatnot, right? Where fighting games, that experience is like you're like handshaking with your opponent, because as you move forward, they're moving back, and the concept of spacing in fighting games makes it such like a mind reading type of like combat.
Mm-hmm. And it's different from game to game either, right? Like you said, there's some games where it's definitely focused on spacing, the distance between the two characters, and what attack ranges everyone has. It's not very combo heavy. There's other games like anime fighters, like Guilty Gear, Blaze Blue, Skullgirls, all of which
ones did you start off with?
Me starting off with?
Yeah, like what were your earlier fighting games that you played?
Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter, I would say.
Yeah. The big two.
I definitely, but that was more like casual play, I think, because there was a long time where I never penetrated that surface level of a fighting game, right? I would play Street Fighter 2, I would throw a fireball or two, or I would play Mortal Kombat, and then like it would just do basic dial combos and all that. There wasn't this understanding of fighting games that I want to impart in this video. Okay. So let's get that started. Let's get started with some of that stuff. So let's break down sort of the types of fighting games there are. Like, you have Street Fighter is one type of game. Street Fighter is a game that is all about having spaces and figuring out what attacks to use against your opponent at any time. Then you have anime fighters, which allow you to do like air dashes, very high mobility, very high skill ceilings. For all the characters, because they behave very differently from each other. They have different sorts of rules. So those can always be intimidating. But I would almost advocate one of the most easiest games to get into right now are anime fighters, because they have this sort of dedicated fighting game group where they want to focus in on teaching players from the ground up the basics.
So what are some examples of anime fighters that are like the current generation?
Sorry, you're cutting out a bit.
What are some examples of the current like anime fighters that you're talking about right now?
It would be Guilty Gear, Blaze Blue, Skullgirls.
Right.
Some people would argue Them's Fighting Herds is an anime fighter, because it does have air dashes, and it does have combos that change from light, medium to heavy across all characters. Sort of a bit like Marvel vs. Capcom.
Right.
The two games I would recommend, actually, for people that are interested in getting into fighting games would be either Skullgirls and Them's Fighting Herds. The reason for this is that one, they are both relatively cheap on Steam right now. You can get into it for $15, $20. Very low investment, and if you bounce off it, you bounce off of it, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. But the most important part is they both have extremely robust tutorials that not only explain to you what is possible in this game, why you want to do it. Them's Fighting Herd specifically is the one that I want to call out as being extremely incredible, because they have stuff like frame data. They show you hitboxes. They show you how much startup there is on each attack, and what they do to your opponent when you hit them. And they go through this very slowly with you, with like text boxes explaining like, okay, when you do an attack, it has startup, which is the frames of an attack. It has active frames, which is the frames in which you can actually hit with it. Then there's recovery frames, which is how long it takes until that attack recovers. And all this stuff seems like complicated at first glance. So calm down. Don't worry about it at first. They will get you there to the point where this makes sense. The important part when you start with a fighting game, though, is just to get a feel for what kind of game it is. And these games do that very well. They explain to you very simple concepts. Like, for some people, it is very weird in fighting games when they approach, how do I block? Where is the block button? A lot of games don't have a block button. Especially if they're anime fighters or traditional classic games like Street Fighter. Mm-hmm. You hold back to block. You crouch to block. And,
right, yeah, there's some barriers to entry.
And the good part about these games, them's Fighting Herds and Skullgirls, is that these are concepts that are catered through almost every single fighting game. Every single fighting game I have played always has light attacks, medium attacks, and heavy attacks. Some of them might only have three types of attacks. Some might have 4, some might have 6. Mm-hmm. But they all sort of like increase in intensity. And some of the rules they have also carry over. And this game will teach that. It will teach you that light attacks sometimes change to medium attacks. You can go up the chain like that in certain games. Some games like Street Fighter don't have this. But what Street Fighter does have, that these games do teach you, is that any of these basic attacks, we call them normal attacks, or just normals for short, can be changed into special attacks, which are moves that you are familiar with seeing, like fireballs in Street Fighter or Scorpion Spear. Those are all special attacks. Mm-hmm. And this is the bread and butter of so many fighting games, is taking normal attacks, turning them into special attacks, and those stringing together becoming combos, which are a string of attacks that your opponent can never break out of. Mm-hmm. This game teaches the fundamentals of that, and then it goes even deeper, because at the core of a combo, it all comes down to frame data. I'm going to skip ahead here because I went ahead of my own slideshow. I'm going to show you what Them's Fighting Herd shows. So this is an example of a training screen, right? Mm-hmm. And this looks overwhelming at first, but once you go through this tutorial, this is when the game presents to you with these options. It shows, here are the collision boxes around the characters. Is what you're actually hitting. Because these characters, they may have ridges, they may have strange things, but at the core of it, they're all just a series of boxes, and boxes that turn red and overlap other boxes trigger hits. It's as simple as that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And all you're doing to gain a more complex understanding of fighting games than anyone else is understanding that every time you do an attack, you are vulnerable for a period, you do damage for a certain period, and then you have to recover from it. 3 very simple phases that are the part of every single attack in any single fighting game is the bread and butter of any single fighting game. Everything else is laid on top of that. Tag systems, super meters, Roman cancels in Blaze Blue, different types of like cancels or dash cancels as you have in like Smash, or wave dashing in Melee. All of that it has to do with getting rid of like your stagger and your attacks and focusing more on doing more active damage phases and leaving yourself less vulnerable to enemies. Mm-hmm. This is stuff that even like in a game that's like not very traditional for fighting games like Smash still takes on those concepts.
Right. True. Yeah, it's funny to see the super advanced tools that are in the more newer fighting games. Like they have the training grounds, which are like, first, the training grounds often have like instance settings so that you can re-instance a combo that you want to practice over and over again. Mm-hmm. And it's funny to come from like the Melee community or one of the older game communities like maybe you were playing like Street Fighter Alpha or something like that, where that data had to either be hacked into through ROMs, or people would do like pretty ridiculous things just to figure out the frame data. For instance, Mewtwo King, one of the most famous smashers, would do this thing where he would pause, and then he realized that if he unpaused and paused again, the game would take forward only one frame of data. So he would do that to calculate a massive database of every character's like hit stun moves and frame lag and stuff like that.
Oh my god!
And he would lab out all the information. But now it's much more easier. But then that also pushes the bar higher now because people would know what are. Well, I guess in the biggest difference between any Smash game and a lot of fighting games is the idea of true combos are much more solidified in traditional fighting games. So I can see why the frame data becomes so important.
Yeah.
When you're trying to figure out whether you can chain a certain move all the way to kill or 90% or something like that.
Yeah. And there's very little like chain all the way to kill moves in fighting games. People call that normally broken.
So it's an interesting concept because Melee, it's like Smash in general has gone through a very similar type of like development. The very first Smash game didn't have any combat directional influence, which is the ability to move your character a little bit every time he gets hit. So in the very first Smash, there are actually true combos in that you can hit someone so that they can't possibly escape from it. And then Melee went like another direction where they allow you to escape, and then Ultimate is another iteration of that. But like if you look at the bar between like say Melee and the original Smash, it's like the complete two opposite ends of the spectrum, where like the original Smash is much like a Street Fighter game or a Marvel vs. Capcom game. But it changes the meta of the fighting game so much when you have true combos that are like go up to high percent, because then essentially the game becomes like a touch of death game, and it's not necessarily bad. There's some pretty hype stuff that you can do, but typically it's not really that fun to watch. To watch one person get like light normaled and then die from it. It's a little too brutal.
That's the thing that always kind of pushes me away from just focusing too much time on getting good at Smash. Even though I like the game generally, there is so much like fairness in the high level of a normal fighting game. I would say like
fairness. What do you mean by that?
Well, for example, when you have a like say Mortal Kombat 11, which is probably the game I got the most into. There's stuff like damage fall off when you get a combo that's super high. So even if you manage to like get an extra hit in, sometimes it's usually not worth it. Optimum combos in Mortal Kombat 11 generally aren't the longest combos. It's generally the combos that are designed to like that you balance between hitting hard and hitting frequently. And you can go into lab and you can try these out and you can figure it out, and you have all that data for you as you build out your own combos, or you look up online and see combos that way if you want to get ahead quick.
Yeah, I guess I'm a little still confused by what you mean by fairness though. Like, is that different than what Smash does?
There's a flow in fighting games sometimes where there is a reset that happens at a certain point, right?
Yep.
And it's more baked into because of that combo, because you can only usually take off a third of someone's health if you do like a really good combo on them. There still is opportunity, like when they're getting up, that you have. Yeah. If someone's either giving a 50% chance to get up, because you don't know if they're going to crouch attack low, or they're going to do an overhead or grab you in the case of Mortal Kombat. Whereas I feel in Smash, like that touch of death thing, where like it's one mistake and then you're dead. It feels a little bit more punishing and not how the game was made up. And that's not to say like I don't enjoy it.
Let me just interject, because I think you're misunderstanding here. Because that was in the very original Smash. And that's only to say that the combo system worked the same way traditional combo systems worked. Just before I continue, though, something's wrong with my audio for you right now. Suddenly your voice got a lot more quiet. I need to just double check if
it got quiet. And you seem to be cutting out as well.
Yeah, I can check. I can check with that too, but I just need to double check if maybe I muted you or something because I'm not sure for what's the deal on my end.
Just gonna check what's using up my internet here. No, my network seems to be fine.
Okay. Well, I'll just deal with the lower volume. I'll boost you up in my Discord. So we'll make do with it. Yeah. So that touch of death thing is only in the original Smash, and then that's the big innovation that Melee brought into the game is that when you get hit, the same frames that you get hit, you can input directions,
right?
And your
DI.
character is influenced in that direction. So essentially, like if you're talking about like in terms of a fair combo system, that's funny. That's exactly why I like Melee the most because every time you get hit, you have an input opportunity to influence their hit on you, and so when they are trying to follow up with a combo, they can't just hit you in a predetermined area. They have to read your movement during the combo, which to me is what makes it like super exciting.
Interesting,
because they're constantly trying to adjust based off of their previous hit, and there's and the high level there's just a lot of mix-ups in terms of just small movements with DI that allow you to like escape combos. Because they force a 50-50 on the person whether they have to react one way or another, right? Yeah. So I think I know what you're talking about, but yeah, just to like clarify that was only in the original Smash.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Is it hard you find in Melee to understand what is the most optimum thing to do? Like say someone.
Yes.
Yeah. That seems very challenging, right?
The biggest difference I like traditional fighting games too because it's almost like it's like the idea of closer to chess where a piece will take another piece regardless of the combat, right? So there's I think I find in regular fighting games there's a little bit more of that in that once you hit someone with an attack, if you are prepared in terms of your punish, you can get like a set amount of damage depending on the type of hit that you get from them, right?
Gotcha.
Where in Melee, it's or at least I would just say Melee because I don't play as much Ultimate. It's fun because yes, you can combo them and you are less likely to be able to follow up with a combo, but because it has the idea of a ledge, there's so many options to you to get an instant kill if you are playing smart enough, and then vice versa because there are so many defensive options. There's a lot of like little things you can do to defend against those same things. So there's a lot of it's like almost like that game where you have like it's like a common movie trope where you have two bandits and they're tied together with arms and they both have knives in the other hand. Yeah, it's like that knife fight. It feels a lot like that. You're both trying to get combos, but there's tons of combo videos where someone drops like the last hit of like this beautiful 7-hit combo, and because the combo always ends with you trying to kill the person off ledge or off screen, the person who's getting combos pulls one good DI move and gets out of the combo and hits the other person and kills them at the ledge. And it's like a super massively like it's like the Goku like bouncing the spirit bomb back at like at like one of his opponents. It's like there's a lot of high risk, high reward impact in Melee.
And that's almost sort of the thing that like I like about traditional fighting games is that there is very much less of that to understand. I almost find it weird when there's people that will say like they will play Smash but they are intimidated by fighting games. Not you specifically, I mean other people that we may know. Because to me Smash is this well of like possible outcomes that can happen at any moment. And it's hard to figure. That's why I never got good at Melee, because I looked into that abyss and I said, this is daunting. I'm impressed by anyone that can manage this.
You know what's funny? It's so I've heard this saying about skiing and snowboarding, in that snowboarding is harder to learn at the beginning if you're a beginner, but easier to master than skiing. Where skiing is easier at the beginning, but harder to master. I find, and this is not to say the skill level. This is just more like the intro appearance to anyone. Smash on the beginner level looks really easy to play. Like if you watch at the beginner level, there is no reads, there is no like, it's a lot of spam. like all the like very for a very long time it's a lot of spam. Even the super highest levels of Melee back in the early days looked like crap compared to what it is now.
And it's also super easy inputs too. It's
it's super easy inputs. There's no
two
combos.
Two attack buttons, a
there's no
dedicated block
memorization.
button.
Yeah. Everyone has the same set in terms of like a C stick move, a B move, A move. So once you learn like the fighting archetype for one character, you know all the inputs. So it simplifies it on the inputs, and it also has a bunch of these like really recognizable characters. So it makes it like just buttery smooth to get into at first. But if you look into it and getting better, it becomes really difficult because you can't. There's no instructions on how to get better in terms of you can't just like download some combos. How do you teach someone to read spacing, right? That's a very advanced, like I think in regular fighting games, like once your players start beginning to look at like spacing heavily, that's like a certain tier that they've jumped to now, right? Like now they're starting to think about spacing because they realize how important that is. But in Melee, if you want to start off as an intermediate, you have to like know that already because everyone's spacing you all the time, right?
That is almost, and the spacing game in Smash is very different from other fighting games because of how mobile it is, and
exactly.
how wide the fields can get.
Yeah, and the fact that there's like a ledge, so like the movement options are very like different. Whereas I think in traditional fighting games, if you look at it from the outsider's perspective, like someone doing a combo looks like very difficult, especially when for you just barely pick up a controller, right? And so I think that's the difference though. Like it's intimidating on the outside because typically I find that traditional fighters you're required to do, well, it's not required, it's part of the fun, is to do a bit of the research on your character, like figure out what your character's moves are. Most people will pick a few characters just to get their move sets, and because you have to memorize their button inputs, right? Like almost every character will have a different type of button input. Especially I remember like Street Fighter, like the original, like or not the original, but let's say take Street Fighter 2, right? Like let's take a look at the main characters. Like if you were to play Guile, right? His freaking Fireball and Dragon Punch type move are completely different than Ken and Ryu's basic set, which is the Dragon Punch movement set, right?
Yeah, they all use quarter circle motions, or as we say, Fireball motions. Or Dragon Punch motions, which is what they're all named for, whereas Guile is specifically a charge character, which differs in that you perform his moves by holding a direction, and then pushing the opposite direction and an attack button. Yeah, and in a sense, that is almost sort of an easier. That's sort of like your skiing and snowboarding analogy, where those inputs are easier to do if you can't get like the down forward motion to do a fireball. Here you just hold back for 3 seconds, push forward, and attack. It's an easier input. But because of that, he plays so differently. He plays a little bit more defensively. He has more defensive options. He has also easier combos, because when you understand how to play a charge character, I think you become a better player than someone that only knows how to do fireball motions, because you start learning things of like, I am charging all the time if I'm blocking or attacking, because those 3 seconds that can be triggering whenever. So you can pull off motions that can come out at times that a quarter circle person will have to have massive dexterity to pull off.
Yeah, so like I think that's part of the initial like difference in terms of how easy it is to get into traditional fighting games. Especially when you look at like more like the anime fighters that you're talking about, where the combos get longer and longer. Like if you were to watch a pro in Marvel vs. Capcom 2 or 3 game, that'd be like horrifyingly intimidating. It just looks like one person constantly knocking the other person down into like 20 combos with different characters.
And yet, Marvel vs. Capcom has some of the easiest inputs of any fighting game. Every single character has a quarter circle. Every single character has a half circle. Special moves are just 2 quarter circles forward. It's super easy. And every single attack in that game chains light, medium, heavy, special. Light, medium, heavy, special, tag. No, it's like light, medium, heavy, uppercut, jump, aerial, light, medium, heavy, tag, light, medium, heavy, tag, light, medium, heavy, special. It is, and that's literally any character in the game Any combination of any team you can do with that. So Marvel vs. Capcom is actually a good starting fighting game that will teach you those basic combat to chain, because all the characters have the same things. You can then start playing those characters and trying to figure out, okay, well, why is this special different? Why does this special chain while these other specials don't? The roster is intimidating, though. And that's sort of the thing that I would also advocate for a lot of the modern like anime fighting games like Skullgirls, especially indie ones, Skullgirls and them's Fighting Hurts. They simplify inputs because they want people to get involved more, and they don't want to have that execution barrier. If you go back and you try to play like Fatal Fury or something, the ones that invent like the pretzel motions, it's really hard. You go try to play as Geese Howard. I can't play as Geese Howard. I can't even do those moves with my thumbs, much less on a stick.
It's very. I find it like just purely on a like a technical game designer perspective, how Smash has, well, at least I can't say Ultimate because they don't do this, but Melee accidentally like got the best of both worlds, because like we were talking about, the inputs are dead simple. Like everyone's abilities are exactly the same in terms of inputs. You forward smash A is A plus forward. You can use the C6 to make it even easier for you.
Yep.
But then I don't know who did this or like what their thinking was, but there's a bunch of hidden techniques in there that make that like exponentially add upon the basic level inputs to make it really not really hard, but much harder and significantly more rewarding if you're able to do it. And like the first one I'm talking about is this idea of called L canceling. So anytime you have an aerial in Melee, you have a set amount of stun frames or lag frames that you're going to be in. But then if you press the block button or the Z button as you land within like a 6-frame window, you'll L cancel, which will halve the amount of frames that you are in lag for, which is a massive amount, which essentially enables a bunch of combos. But every single time you land, you have to press it within the 6-frame timing, which is approximately like within like a 0.25 second timing window, right? So it's missed a lot still, even in pro play. But it's like just to think about how often people jump in any fighting in Smash Brother games, right? It's like having to constantly remember to press that extra little button, even though the input is simple, makes the combo itself much more difficult, because you're having like, you're trying to like play the drums and then also play an additional rhythm on top of that, like at the same time. Which if they didn't have that combo, that system, I think that the skill range would be not nearly as large between like pro players and regular players. But I think it would also make it like less exciting, because then you wouldn't be able to show off that level of skill. And I think that's like something that's kind of interesting that fighting games always have to balance, because fighting games are always super, like, it's very hard to find someone that's your skill level in any fighting game. You almost always have someone that's going to be better than you or worse than you. By a pretty significant degree, one way or the other, unless you start it off together, right? So it's weird because fighting game companies have to bring in new audiences, and I think that's what these new games are doing by giving you these great tutorials and systems to learn their game. Because like once you start playing, it's so brutal. Like you really have to be okay with loss and like just getting your ass smacked and learning from it, right?
That's part of like the my top 10 ways to get better in fighting games is like be okay with losing and understanding that is okay, and that's how you improve. But hearing like you talk about this is what I may feel like, oh my god, Ken, you would be such a great candidate for getting into like so many different fighting games, because I know you like this thing about like with the L canceling. That's all most fighting games is figuring out ways to cancel.
I know. It's honestly not the fact that I don't like them, because I got into Marvel vs. Capcom 2 back in the heyday, back when it was still in arcades as like the new game. It was mainly because no one taught me the intricacies of any fighting game. So I only saw it at the surface level, which is that you play maybe at your friend's house here and there, right? But all the good fighting games have these like hidden mythos techniques that's shared amongst the community that actually make it much more interesting. And what got me for Smash was like a documentary called the Smash Brothers documentary, where they go through. It's a beautiful documentary that really like revitalized the scene, and it just did that. It was like, hey, check out these cool things that are in the game, explained L canceling and wave dashing, because I didn't know what they were either, right? And I watched that documentary when I was way in my like mid 20s, and that's when I got into Melee. I played tons of Melee back when I was a kid, but again on that surface level. And I think that there just hasn't been like other people to introduce me to these concepts in other games to get me excited, because it's like these advanced concepts, but you would never know it by watching, like, I don't know, just watching a random video or just playing by yourself, right?
Yeah, that's actually such a challenge even for me for like a lot of the big fighting games. Like one of my darkest holes in is that's a weird saying. One of my biggest gaps in fighting games is Tekken. I could never get to a level where like I could understand Tekken because its concepts are not very well explained in the game. And I go watch a lot of videos, and it's very heavy on certain inputs, on canceling with like certain moves, how you move. There's people that move in that game in certain ways. Say, this is how you want to move, this is how you want to do spacing. It's like a very core thing. And I was like, nowhere in the game is this explained.
Tekken, I would say, is the closest to Melee if Melee didn't have jumping and the ledge. Like, because Tekken is such a spacing heavy game.
Yeah.
And the micro
and the combos
movements that you do are so important.
Yeah.
Like and like Tekken to me is like, if you were to take like just the aiming out of first person shooters and then just have a game all about that. That's what Tekken feels like. It's like the instillment of one major concept with all the other concepts kind of thrown in there, but this one's the most important one in fighting games.
Yeah. And it's definitely like these kinds of games are the opposite of games that like I really get into, which is like Blaze Blue and Mortal Kombat and Skullgirls, for example. Huh?
Mortal Kombat, like, it was another game that I only played on the surface level, so I never knew the deep combos. But I loved that, like, because my parents used to run like a grocery store, and we had a arcade cabin. And then I would never know how to do any of the finisher moves, but I would watch other people go into our stores and do like like the special finishers. I'd be like, "What the hell?" And that's pre-internet days. You didn't know. There's no way you could find out about like.
You had to buy the GamePro magazine.
Yeah, exactly. They didn't even tell you what the finishers were if you bought the game.
Yeah. And that's sort of like the interesting part about Mortal Kombat is you look at these games and you're like, yeah, this is amazing, I want to do this, and then you feel so incompetent when you first pick up the controller and you're like, none of this works for me. But I think like the newest one, like Mortal Kombat 11, like I'd love to sit down with you and do a few rounds of Mortal Kombat 11 and show like why I think that game it is the most AAA. It's the best AAA jumping on point because it does have a comprehensive tutorial, not as comprehensive as them. You know what? It's probably as comprehensive as them fighting her in Skullgirls. It does even include frame data. It does. It taught me stuff. It taught me about frame traps. It taught me like that's the first game that I played where like it actually really taught me about frame data. Was Mortal Kombat 11. Even if they don't display it as well as them fighting her does. But that's when I felt like I liked fighting games before I played Mortal Kombat 11. I fell in love with fighting games after I played Mortal Kombat 11.
How to play Mortal Kombat though? Like, did you
Mortal
learn through
Kombat
the community?
did.
Oh, you
Mortal
just found
Kombat
everything
did.
through tutorial?
Like
what?
I hadn't had understanding of frame data before I played Mortal Kombat 11. Right. I knew how to play fighting games. I knew how to play Blaze Blue. I could play well at like work with like at where we used to work with our coworkers. I used to play and I used to do well. But Mortal Kombat 11 gave me that knowledge to understand there was more here beyond that level. I was like an intermediate level, and I think Mortal Kombat 11 peeled back the curtain and said like, nah, this is all boxes and numbers, man.
You know what?
And that's when I got the entry point that I needed to go on the internet and like learn more about what other people are doing, learn more about comics, be able to watch like Mortal Kombat and play and understanding. And the beauty of Mortal Kombat 11 is that it's not that complicated compared to other games. When you for example, just a broad example, when you get put into a corner in Mortal Kombat 11, which is one of the most frustrating things in any fighting game, or like when you get put on ledge in like Smash. I think about all the different possibilities that can happen when you're on ledge, and I think about what can happen in Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat 11, when you're in the corner, there's only maybe 4 things that can happen there. When you get up, you can do a wake-up attack. You can try doing a burn meter to roll out of the corner, I think. Yeah, that's Mortal Kombat. You can burn meter to roll out of the corner. You can get up and be crouching low. You can be getting up and crouching high. And each of these has an answer to the attacker. Like the attacker can, if you're crouching low, he can be doing an over attack on you. If you're trying to roll out, he can try doing a grab, which cancels a roll. If you're doing a standing block, he's going to hit you with a low attack. And this distills fighting games to the most thing, is that what is my opponent going to do, and what am I going to do to not only prevent him from doing this to me, but also getting in a position where I can do something awful to them in return. You know?
So I it's a very interesting concept that you're talking about right now, and it just makes me think of like I went through a binge where I played a lot of chess. And chess is like a fighting game. Chess is very, very much like a fighting game. And to give you an exact point, this is the situation you're talking about right now about being in the corner in Mortal Kombat. It exists in Melee too, but to a different extent. In Smash, when you get knocked down, there's the same options. You can get up, attack. You can roll left, roll right, or get up normally. Right. All of them have different lag timings. Right. And then when I started playing chess, it really opened my eyes in terms of how that game teaches you fighting. So like if you were just imagine a fighting game where you don't have any skill involved now. All right, you have an infinite amount of time to put your inputs in, so there's no way to get it wrong. Chess is just you move one move. There's no incorrect input, right? And so when you're taking a piece, like say you're using the rook or like a bishop, you are looking at what options your rook has or your characters have on the map, and say you're trying to track down the opponent's king or queen, you're looking at what options they have, right? And you're trying to predict what options they're going to roll into. And then just like fighting games, and I love this part about fighting games too. It's not just about figuring out what they're going to do, but how do you set yourself up to punish where they're going to be rather than where they are, right? A lot of people will, like with the rolling technique you're talking about, I think a lot of noobs would only go for options that attack the person's position currently. And then when you go into advanced and you start reading for someone's rolls, then you're starting to read their reaction, and you're almost like throwing
reading
the ball
the
where the person will be, right? Yeah. And and then I'll take it one step a little bit further, is that Melee and to a large degree Ultimate as well, like it takes that into further advance, because once you hit them with that first hit, when you read them, they have another opportunity. So a lot of times what in Melee you're doing is that you cover the option that you know they're going to go to, but then you don't attack that position because they're already trying to evade your attack from there. You try to predict where they're going to go after that. So it's like another level of read, right? And I think that's very common in other fighting games too, because then once you, like when you throw a fireball out, I think like a lot of beginner players would be like, oh yeah, I'm about to throw a fireball and he will get hit or not get hit. Whereas a lot of pro players would throw a fireball and say, okay, he has to either jump over this fireball or block. What can I do to expose the fact that he only has those two options now, right? I think that's like the beauty part about fighting games in general, is that it teaches you to like plan out the sequence of possibilities. So that's the homework that you have to put into it, right? Like you have to figure out where they might be, but then it's live, so you have to be able to execute on your homework. And I think that's like a beautiful concept that's in fighting games, that's in like Smash, that's in all fighting games. Yeah, that's the reason that like part of the reason that I freaking love like Melee so much, is that it's such a applicable skill to life, to the fact that you have to research something, look at the options, pick the best option, but then not only do you have to like actually know it, you have to be able to execute on it when the time comes. Yeah. Right.
And also the thing that's even more beautiful, that goes beyond that I think is really what draws me to fighting games, even though like you said it is common in chess, it is common in like strategy games, like we talked before, this whole concept of thinking a few moves ahead. The thing about fighting games is that, like, to take a page out of Goku, legendary fighting game enthusiast,
true.
You can only really know someone when you fight them.
It's actually super true.
There is so much you can know about a person's personality just by how they play a fighting game or what character they pick.
I think it's true of any game. I find it so funny that when I talk to my hockey team, the guy who's super defensive in hockey is super defensive in playing games as well.
Yeah.
Like everyone has their tendencies, but it's really true when you play someone in a fighting game that you really get to know them. and then you see their ticks come out, and everyone's emotions get so high, especially if you're in a match where like you really want to win for some reason. Maybe the person's really equal, like. It's hard to talk to that person after you lose to them, right? Like if you lose to them, it's a tough conversation sometimes.
To me, it's always like I'm always excited. Like if I'm even with someone, if I'm even with someone and they manage to pull out a victory to me, that gets me excited. That means that like no, there is more I can learn here. This person's showing me that I can still improve. And if I get better than them and I beat them, that means I have shown progress. That means this has not been for nothing, right? Yeah, and that's the most exciting part. What I hate the most is like is when you win too easily, because then you just feel bad. If I get stomped, that's a humbling experience, and then like I'm excited because I got to see someone that's really good at the game, and I can see what is possible in this game, and I can see what holes are in my plan. If it's an even match and I lost, that means that I am that much closer to like going up like a skill tier in this game. If I win and it's an even match, you're over the moon because you've conquered that hill. You've gotten to like the next level, and you've hopefully pulled that person up with you, because they also should have the same reaction that you have, is like, no, there's something here that I can get better at. And that's what I love about fighting games, personally. So let's move on to the other thing that I wanted to get into on fighting games, which is, say you've chosen your game, right? You want to get into like Them's Fighting Herds, you want to get Skullgirls, you're listening to this and you want to get it. Ken, you're going to get into Mortal Kombat. So let's talk about which character you're going to want to play. Right. Because that's the daunting thing about fighting games as well. It's like once you decided to play it, you're then confronted with this. And sorry, not this. It's probably something more, let's see. Like this, right? There's all these characters. They look extremely different from each other. You have no idea what type of character to pick, right? And this is kind of like when you're going online. And like the thing about fighting games is like they start out looking like this. This is sort of the beauty of fighting games as well. Like usually have a few characters, a few options are limited. Eventually they grow to become like this. I just realized this also has an audio podcast portion to it. I'm showing how Street Fighter 5 start off with what? That's 4x4, 8, 20, 16. What is that?
Yeah, like 16, 20 characters.
16, yeah, 16 characters at the start, and then it ballooned up to, I don't even know how many characters this is. It's a ridiculous amount of characters. It's a ridiculous amount of matchups. So how do you go about picking a character? Most games don't really give you a good way to look at it, which is why I also recommend Them's Fighting Herds for people that want to get invested in fighting games. There is only 6 characters in Them's Fighting Herds, and each one of them has a tutorial that explains to you what that character is strong at. And almost every single archetype in that game is represented. You have a zoner, a character that focuses on doing projectile attacks and baiting their opponent to making mistakes. You have a trap/item character, someone that uses projectiles that do different effects on the character to catch them out of position and do effects. You have a rushdown character, which is focused on running into your opponent, doing quick attacks, trying to catch them off guard in that way. You have a character that is a grapple character that focuses on getting around people's defenses by completely negating them by grabbing them and putting them in situations where you have the advantage. So many of these different character types that are in all over these games are distilled in like this 43 character rosters in Street Fighter. There are a variety of permutations in them. But Them's Fighting Herds is like a little appetizer palette that lets you like see what is possible in the fighting game. So I recommend people check those out, check those tutorials, learn what those characters are to learn what type of character they like to play. And once you do, you can go into any fighting game, look up online which of these are rushdown characters, which of these characters are grapple characters, which of these characters are heavy and slow or fast and weak, and figure out what you want to do. So for me,
I have a slightly different process.
Yeah, tell me, what's your process when you pick a character? I was about to go into mine.
If I'm playing a multiplayer fighting game, I don't bother looking at the characters. I look at the tier list first, and I see what viable characters there are.
Boo!
Yeah, no. Well, if I'm playing a multiplayer game, And unless it's like a game that I really, really don't care about getting better at, I definitely want to play a character that's meta so that I understand what the meta is. Because I also don't want to like waste my time with a character that's like ultimately futile. You know, like there are definitely some, like most games, especially with a huge roster, will not have an even matchup. And I don't think games should have an even matchup, to be honest. I think games with like 100 like super even matchups across the entire board are typically the most boring games that you can find. So I don't mind the tier list, but I also think that like when you're playing a fighting game, the top levels are typically revolving around a set tier of characters, and that's the quote unquote majority of the competitive scene, and that's what you want to be enjoying. So if I don't enjoy that, then I'm not gonna want to like continue, right? Because
So this is the thing that has changed a lot with like modern games that get patches and stuff, is that I feel tier lists are sort of irrelevant at this point in a way, especially if you're playing at like a really high pro level, which like I'm not. But new strategies and metas are like being discovered all the time. That like the tier list for Mortal Kombat 11 is so fluid. There's almost no point in looking at it, right? And because of how the game is balanced in a way, it is kind of balanced. That's not to say like characters don't have disadvantages in certain matchups. There absolutely is in Mortal Kombat. But it feels that every character has enough tools that they can be successful in adaptive situations if you are a good player of that character. So it is much more important to me that I'm playing a character that I feel good about in towards of like what I want to do, than like looking at a tier list that's just going to change every single month, because I feel that is no longer relevant. In a case like Melee, a game that has never been updated and has 6 viable characters, I can definitely see not wanting to spend your time with say what's a weak character, Roy, right?
Yeah, Roy's a weak character. It has a bit more than that, but that's all right. But we can go to the more advanced one, like let's say Ultimate, which just have patches. I don't think tier lists are irrelevant. I think that tier lists might be irrelevant for the majority of players, especially if you're not going into a competitive scene. But I think that if you're actually trying to go into a competitive scene, like you're trying to go into the Street Fighter competitive scene and you're playing a trash tier character that you don't even know that's bad, you are not learning a lot of the techniques and skills that are inside that community. Whether it's through like watching other tournaments or etc. Because there's a reason why the characters are doing better or worse. And I think for me, and this is not for everybody, this is specifically for me and why I like Melee and why I like as an artist I really appreciate this mentality, is that like winning is like perfection in art. Like you're not gonna get it all the time, but you should always be striving for it because that makes you better. And so for me, like playing a fighting game to not win, like it's okay to play a fighting game and be okay with losing. That's different than playing a game to like not win.
Absolutely.
Because if you're not playing it to win, you're not playing to learn. Because there's no like scientific method that you can use to figure out you're getting better at something. And that's the important part for me. And I agree that you can get better with any character in any fighting game because there's always a range that character is probably going to be able to compete in. And for the most part, unless you're going into an actual competitive scene, you're going to be able to beat like someone online in the same MMR as you. But I think that if you were trying to beat like a high tier character in any game, in most fighting games with a low tier character, it's like trying to learn to lift weights by pushing up 500 pounds in your first try. Like it's not going to help you, right? You need to like the reason I like and when I say my method of picking a top tier character is that there's always a bunch of characters that are in the top tier, unless it's a really bad fighting game that like got messed up with the tier and one character is the best. Then after I see the tier list, then I look at the fighting styles and see which ones are that fit the kind of gameplay that I would want to play, right? So that's my methodology. Yeah. That's not necessarily good for everyone, and especially if you're just like interested in the game as a whole. Like I would play Mortal Kombat playing the character that I would want to play because I have no interest right now in going into like a competitive multiplayer scene. But if I was going to go into a competitive multiplayer scene, I would 100% look at the tier list. Yeah. I would not like. I just don't like spending all that time okay, when you get better at a fighting game, if you're trying to win, you can, one, try to learn everything yourself, or two, more likely, you're going to download as much information you can from the community as possible. Because they're probably like a billion steps ahead of you, and you will waste your time like trying to trying to innovate everything from the start. What you want to do is catch up to the meta so that you can start improving or changing that, like using it to your own methods, right? That's my opinion.
Yeah, definitely most fighting games, like modern days, at least have like I said, they have a ton of options. And always to me, like you said, I'm not gonna play. I would never want to get good at a zoning character. That's just not like we get just like the part where like personality like matters, like influences. Like, I would never play a zoning character because that's just not how I want to play a fighting game. If a character, if a game has like a high, like the highest tier character is like a zoning character, doesn't matter. I am not gonna play that character. But also, and in most cases, like I'm looking here at the Mortal Kombat like tier list that I have. There's only like 4 characters here at the bottom that they put under tier 4, and then they say like here like a disclaimer is like, even though these are at the bottom, these are still viable characters. Like that's what I think like a good fighting game does, is like even like the low tier characters are viable.
So what I would say, because like with the Smash community, they've gone through like several iterations and of varying degrees of likeness by the community, right? Smash 4 or Brawl is by far considered the worst one. Yeah. And I wouldn't say like, let's forget the fact that Meta Knight was the only top tier character, the S tier character. Let's say they take him out in general, right?
Which they generally did for tournaments.
Some of them didn't. Most of them didn't, which is why the tournament scene died. So my thing is that for me, for a fighting game, I don't want there to be all the matchups possible to be good. I want the top matchups to be really interesting, because those are the ones I'm going to see the most. Like if you're because all fighting game communities revolve around tournaments pretty much, right? Or like some sort of like competitive matchup thing, right? And those ones are always going to be played with mostly meta characters if you're talking about anyone that wants to take it seriously. And those are the matchups you see the most. So if I were to go into a fighting game, if I was like in your shoes and I look at this new fighting game and the top meta is only spacer, what do you call it? What do you call them? Zoning characters? Let's say the top 10 characters that are played in tournament are all zoning characters. I'd be like, F this shit. I'm out of this game. I don't want to play this game, right? Like I'm not going to play this game. So that's what I mean. Like I think it's important to look at the top tiers, just because that's the community that you're going to get into, right? Do you want to see more of this?
That's a good point.
Or do you want to see more of other stuff? Right?
Yeah, that's a good thing to point out, I guess. Yeah. I see what you're going with there.
But what I like though is like if you get into a top tier character and you like the game, you almost always guaranteed you pick your second tier character that's your true favorite character. Like for me, it's Link, who's the slowest fucking character in Melee. He's terrible, but he's my boy, right?
Right.
So once you get high enough so that you like prestige over your friends, and now you're like 200 EXP points above them, you lower your skill level by playing this lower tier character that you love. But now you know all the techniques, and so you can make it work.
I'm actually curious now, guys. I was going to go through some of the characters that I main, because I definitely there definitely is that.
Yeah, tell me.
I was just, oh man, my computer went into check. Can't type on my keyboard.
Okay, we'll take a second.
Just gonna look at this tier list again.
What game is this, by the way? Mortal Kombat?
This one here?
The game that you're telling me that you're.
Oh, I was looking up the tier list for Mortal Kombat 11. Yeah, actually, as it turns out, the character that I enjoy playing in Mortal Kombat 11 is Liu Kang.
Nice.
Liu Kang is my boy in Mortal Kombat 11. I like Liu Kang because he gets in your face. He attacks very fast.
So I don't know his style. Can you describe how he fights in that game?
Yeah. So he gets in your face.
Yeah.
He hits extremely fast. Yeah. And he has projectiles. If you ever like get into a fight with someone that's a zoner, you can kind of zone back and frustrate them back in their way and sort of like play their game in a way. Generally, you also don't want to do that with zoners, but it gives you the option to just throw out a fireball and see what happens. Maybe they're going to jump over it. Maybe they're going to block. It lets you sort of feel out the other player. So always having like a fireball helps me when I pick a character. If I see a character that that has that. But Liu Kang's, most of his game plan is he wants to get close to you, hit you with fast attacks to have slow startup, and try and trip you up when you try and counter it. A lot of his combos you can stop short if they start getting blocked, and you can start up a new one almost like pretty quickly because they have slow fallbacks. So sometimes when I see someone's blocking, I will deliberately stop that combo, and then I have the choice of either throwing them or seeing if they're going to start an attack, get like a quick jag in there to stun them. Usually not that point, like, the fuck? And then you can do your punishing combo on them because you destabilize them, right?
Right. It's like
it's a pressure
like a light jab to see if they're going to react and open up.
Yep.
And then you expose them when they open up.
Exactly.
Yeah. Very interesting. Yeah.
And then he also has some combos that are just really fun. He's really fast. He's audacious in a way because he does those really all the moves. So he's a little bit annoying, but not incredibly annoying. So I kind of like characters that are like that.
Yeah. By the way, I loved Mortal Kombat's facial designs. They really like changed up everyone's ethnicities to be more unique to their ethnicity or like their character.
Yeah. Also, they put more clothes on them. Like. I like the way Katana looks. She looks like really unique and like fascinating, like a real like a person that you would find in like Southeast Asia or something. Very cool. They have very good facial tech in that game.
I almost laughed because when I watched the cinematics from Mortal Kombat 11, I was like, wow, this is coming from the game that like wanted to make up a new character that was pretty much Liu Kang, and they called him Kung Lao, and they like just replaced the letters of his name and the syllable usage, and he's like, for the longest time he was like a very similar character.
He had a hat, he had a teleport. I would argue Kung Lao is actually very different.
I would say that the gameplay wise, you're right. I was just purely from an aesthetic level because they like
please. This is the team that has 5 ninjas that only had different colored sprites.
Well, it's funny because then they had 5 ninjas and they had like they're all dupes, but then they doubled down on everything in terms of they kept it and then they just added backstory and lore to all their different ninjas, and now they all look super different and unique.
And they all play very different too.
Yeah, I think they knew they couldn't copy exactly the same thing anymore.
Yeah.
Like they went out of their way to make all these characters like unique, which is really cool actually. I like that a lot.
Yeah, Mortal Kombat is definitely one of my favorite like long time fighting games. Like I say, it's the one that like got me to like that next tier of understanding fighting games. So I'll always appreciate it.
It's funny how you see like the roots of Mortal Kombat's like video capture like animation style like still today. Like, you know, did you see that how they captured all the footage for the original Mortal Kombat game sprites? They would like have actual actors and they would take these low res JPEG pictures of them.
Yeah.
But then because of the way that they filmed, these were actors, all the fighters have a very stand up straight type of pose, which is still there today in Mortal Kombat. Like if you look at Mortal Kombat versus any other game, like let's look at the two big ones, Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter, and you see the evolution of look at Street Fighter 4 and you look at any of them like fighting just like their neutral stances, like their bodies are crouched over. You have like E Honda in a freaking like Slavic pose or something like that, and their character silhouettes are much different. And that was the direction that Street Fighter went to, but then Mortal Kombat like stuck to its guns, and it has like it's very much like stand up more straight. They've definitely softened it up so the characters have better like different silhouettes, but like, you can tell their backs are like super straight, you know, like
I can see what you're saying.
Yeah.
And then moving on. So that's sort of like the genesis of like the type of styles that I like. I like characters that can get in your face, that are slightly annoying, and gives me a little bit more options to try and understand the person I'm fighting with, like with the fireball and etc. And then have extremely flashy combos. Like my favorite combo that Liu Kang does is like 3 kicks and then a flying kick that you can then amplify so that he makes that kick turn into fire and he flips someone off. And then because of that, it pushes them into a corner, and I love putting people in corners. Because then you can just pressure them more in the corner. That's his game plan, right? And I like that game plan. Apply pressure, get them in the corner, win, and then make sure you have the advantage.
Smother them, right?
And if they start fighting back with you, you have abilities to like, well, let's see if I can trip them up.
You have your mix-ups, right?
Yeah. But that's not the only type of character I play, because in Street Fighter I play Zangief.
The counter character.
Huh?
I like he plays that counter trap character, right?
Exactly. He's a very he hits like a truck. But he's slow, right? He has a lot of startup on his attacks, but all of his abilities are meant to sort of put the other player out of the position that they are comfortable with. Zangief loves it when you're close to him. He wants to just give you a big ol' hug.
Yeah, I love how scary he is.
Yeah, he's scary, but like also his character, he is the friendliest guy. He just wants everyone to be better at fighting. He just loves the thrill of the fight, and he's extremely enthusiastic about it.
He just wants to 360 hug you.
Yeah, exactly. And because of this, he is kind of annoying. Like you pull off.
He's super annoying.
He pulls off like his special move, and he grabs you, and like he's yelling in Russian with this big old grin, and his like chest hair is just all puffed out, and like he drives you into the ground, and he's smiling the whole time. He is kind of annoying. Fits into the Luis Fernando fighting game MO, even though he plays completely differently. But in a way, not so different to how I would play Liu Kang, just a lot slower.
Yeah, you're right. I am bad. Trying to get close.
Exactly. Is always getting close and then doing a bunch of damage. I am not a very good Street Fighter player, but I think that's also because there's a lot of extremely good Street Fighter players.
Yes.
But I love playing Zangief. I love doing grabs. Grapple characters are another type of character that I like, and that's because of Zangief.
I loved how they expanded onto the grapple character.
Sorry?
I liked how they expanded into the grapple character like genre post Zangief. Because Zangief in Street Fighter 2 was the only one that did that, right?
Exactly.
Like
he's also like the like Guile's also the only charged character other than Blanca, which was half a charged character.
I just love, like, if you look at Street Fighter 2, like, besides Ken and Ryu being clone characters, that game is so good. Like, all the characters are have become archetypes of the fighting genre. Like, Chun-Li has her own fighting style, like Guile, like you're talking about. You had E Honda, you had Dalsum, who was essentially the zoner, but like melee zoner, right?
Yeah, got range. He had a lot of projectiles. He had like 2 different fireballs.
Yeah, he had a flamethrower and a fireball, and then he had like multiple, like he could be the most annoying character to fight, like like because you're just trying to get in on him the entire time, and he does that stupid dance when he wins that like mocks you.
Yeah,
I still remember that goddamn dance.
That sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
He still got nothing on my boy Zangief.
True.
Next, here's like what we're gonna talk about, like Smash Ultimate. Characters that I like to play. Ganondorf is not my main in this game, but I love playing Ganondorf. Why? He gets in your face, he's got a dedicated grapple attacks, and he's kind of annoying.
It's all the characters you play are like the characters that are super annoying because you combo them for like a bunch of hits, and then they get one grab on you and does like the same amount of damage that you just spent all this work
all you need with Ganondorf sometimes is like that one big hit. Like same with Zangief. You get off like a one good grapple, or with Ganondorf, you do that side grab that you slam someone in the ground, and then you give them like a cheeky little kick, and it combos like pretty easily unless they roll out of the way, unless you do a tech roll, depending on where they go. And you can sort of like that's sort of like a little like. Let's see what you're like when you actually manage to grab them. I love attacks that like get rid of people's shields, because when people block attacks, it sucks. So I love having an attack that will get through like someone's block always.
Yeah, you got an aerial grab,
and unless they dodge it, and then if they dodge it and then counter you, and then that makes you feel unsafe. You're like, you want to you got something else going on. And if they do that, you have the slide kick, which you can get around like a dodge, right?
Yeah, you have your options.
And that's like an option, right? And like, am I going to grab you or am I going to kick you? It makes the game a little bit interesting. And then at any time, like if you're in the air, they're scared of my forward air because it hits like a truck. You know, he has so many moves that you make the other player afraid of. And that's what I want. I want my opponent to be afraid of me and how scary my character is, while also be kind of annoyed about him.
True, I can see the commonality in all the characters that you like to play. Yeah, I can see it.
But who I really play as is Lucario. He doesn't hit as hard, but similar to Ganondorf, he has a dedicated grab attack That is how he can do his kills, his side B, which is also the same input as him. He also has a lot of aerial combos. You can like combo someone off the ledge with him, which is why I like him with his throws. He also has a projectile, which is something that Ganondorf doesn't have, which is why Ganondorf is not my main. Lucario has a projectile. So many times with Lucario's projectile, you can do stuff with if someone's off the ledge, you just throw out a ball, and then they're either gonna go underneath and ledge up, in which case the ball might hit them, or they're gonna have to like wait there, or they're gonna jump up, in which case you can jump up and meet them and kick them off, and then your blue ball might still hit them. There's a lot of like fun stuff you can do with Lucario in that way. Which I like. Those are the type of character. He's also fast. He's got like slow start on his attacks. And this is the thing that I kind of like about Smash is that even though he seems pretty good with all this stuff, he has an Achilles heel in that his recovery has so much lag on it. But it still gives you a chance because it also has a little bit of attack. So if you can hit someone with it and they don't hit you back, you can do a safe recovery with him. And he's a little risky, but he's also really powerful, and he has that little variety. He's the kind of character that I'm gonna love to play.
Right. Nice.
And all this stuff, like with Smash, like I didn't look up this sort of character. This went into my intuition with these games, right? I go in with the character that I thought was gonna look the most fun. And Lucario, he looks amazing. He's an awesome character. Ganondorf is like a fucking mean badass. I went through a lot of characters though in Smash to find these two that I liked playing. With same with like Mortal Kombat and stuff. There's a lot of characters that I played and I found like this is the one that clicks. This is the one that lets me do the things I like. It just happens that in Mortal Kombat 11, Liu Kang is also tier 1 character. I don't know where in Smash. I don't know where in Smash U. Smash U, is that what they say? They fall.
Ultimate. They just call it Ultimate.
They just call it Ultimate. Smash U was 4. Smash 4? Smash for Wii U?
Wii U? I think it's Smash for Wii U. That's Smash 4. Yeah.
Well,
I'm not sure where Lucario falls in Ultimate either. Yeah, I'm not sure the current the tier list.
Yeah. So you see, like it almost doesn't matter to me, like these tier lists. It's more like let me do what I like doing in fighting games. So let me sort of understand my opponent the way they let me to. So that brings me to Darly Dagger. Samurai Showdown is the latest fighting game that I started trying to play.
Okay.
And Darly Dagger is amazing. Darly Dagger is oh my god, it is stupid. So Samurai Showdown is a normal heavy game, just like Street Fighter. There's like a heavy slash attack, which is just a single button input, and that is enough to take away like 40% of a character's health. Like they hit really hard. Wow. So it has a lot of emphasis on defense and doing bursts of heavy damage. Combos are maybe 3-4 hits max.
Okay. Yeah.
And you have a lot of different options, different types of attacks. You have attacks that will get rid of someone's weapon, and then they're stuck fighting with their fists until they pick up their weapon, so their damage is severely halved. You have guards that will guard normally. You have a spot dodge, just like in Smash, which lets you counter pretty quickly. You also have like a parry, which is an input as well as a block, so it's very high risk. But if they're trying to attack you with a heavy attack, they lose their weapon, gives you more frames to attack. It's very focused on frames and recoil and resets and all that. Darly Dagger is a beginner type of character. So Samurai Showdown, not the greatest tutorial. I had to look up a guide on these characters. So I looked up a set of beginner characters. Darly Dagger is a beginner character. But what she can do is she hits extremely hard. She has a command grab as well, because this game doesn't have normal throws, but command grabs are the only ones that do damage, so I like that about her. She has a charge attack that if you hold for 5 seconds is unblockable, and it reflects projectiles even if you release it early. So you can really like slip up other players if you get your timing right with her. The best part I like about her though is if you drop her weapon, she has one special attack she can do where she starts winding up a punch and she walks towards the character and punches them, and it is unblockable, and it has armor for 1 hit, and it does 75% damage.
Wow.
It is insane. Like a normal character, and people will like usually see you approach them and they will try block. I tried this online, which is why I love this. They will either like block or try and parry you or try and hit you, but because of the armor and because of the fact that it's unblockable, most people don't know this, it will hit. A smart player will jump over you, and if they do that, then like you're probably gonna get a hit, or they're gonna whiff, or something's gonna happen. But just the fact that she has attack and that she's scary, and because she has that unblockable if you charge, makes her scary and kind of annoying, and I love her. I have never felt such an immediate connection with a character as I've had with Darlie Dagger in this game. She like is just one of the coolest characters I have started to learn, and it made me really like Samurai Showdown, even though I have other problems with how the tutorial is and like the fact that barely anyone's playing it online anymore.
That's a problem with some of these fighting games. Is that their communities aren't always like stable enough to keep going.
Yeah,
that's a big problem with the fighting games, actually. Yeah,
there is like a local scene for Samurai Showdown that I was hoping to hop into, like once I get a better control of Darlie Dagger. But it is, oh my god, it is stupid, and she is like the cockiest like heavy hitter that I've ever played, because she's a pirate. She's sassy. She's just there because she wants to mess up your day, and she can do it.
Right.
like her attacks, they sort of, if you get, she's also a very big spacer. Depending on where you are in attack, if you're like in a long range and you do a heavy attack, it will like poke them, but it won't like do the most damage. If you're in that mid range, it grabs and she like saws through them with this attack, and it does easy 30% damage with one hit on them.
Showdown seems like a much more like Bushido Blade type of combat.
Yes,
where it's like
Samurai Showdown definitely
really
is that.
Looking at a few hits, and you're really looking at spacing and winning neutral is extremely important.
Mm-hmm. Bushido Blade is a game that I actually didn't really get into. I wish I did, but that's kind of the problem when the only two games you have are on the PlayStation 1.
Yeah.
Samurai Showdown is probably like the closest thing you'll get to like a Bushido Blade type game, even though you're not as fragile as Bushido Blade. Mm-hmm. You definitely can die super quickly, and it is super fun. I like really digging it.
I like the aspect of having something that's like the ledge in Smash. Like the concept of the ledge is so interesting to me that it's maybe the reason why I don't play other fighting games, is because they don't have something that's like the ledge. Mm-hmm. Like this idea that you could like coup de grace someone at any moment by just like the right inputs, right? Like I love that kind of like high risk, high reward type of thing.
The game that's a very good point. That is something that Smash has, is that also the opportunity for you to come back in a way. I would argue for like your sake, just to convince you to try other stuff and like a high tier level, because I think you would be very good, Ken. Because I think you have the exact right mindset to get good at pretty much any fighting game, and I would love to see you shine in them. There are these mechanics in pretty much most other fighting games. For example, sort of the comeback thing that you can get with Smash, where like even if you're high percentage, you can still wreck someone, and you can still recover even if you get hit very hard. There's like the fatal blow in Mortal Kombat 11, where like if you're at your last 20% of your 20%, 10%, 50%, some percent of your health, you can do a special attack only once per game that will do a guaranteed 35% damage to the player, and that'll sort of reset the field. And it also like it scares the other player. They make you respect you at a low percentage as well because of that. But also it's hard for new players because then it's easy to whiff that attack. But if you confirm it just by standard fighting game techniques, that's guaranteed damage that you can reset or win the round or do something that can get you back in a good position. So that's sort of like an answer to that. Similar to like the instant kills, there's gauges that you can build for like astral finishes in Blaze Blue that will instantly kill the other character if you build up meter in a way, if you're conservative in a way, if you're playing exceptionally well, similar to how if you play exceptionally well in Smash, or the other player slipping up more, you can get that instant kill. These sort of things that I know you enjoy in Smash, similar with the ledge. The ledge is the corner in most fighting games. That's where you get the mix-up opportunities. That's where you get you're in real trouble at the ledge, but you can also recover it if you do, and you get the mind games. That's the corner, right? Smash doesn't have corners; it has ledges. Most other games have corners, but it's the same similar mind game. And I think if you wanted to and you really dug into that, you would find a lot that you would really enjoy in these games.
I do find that there's a lot of crossover and a lot of concepts in fighting games that are very interesting. Like the concept of neutral was really interesting when I first learned about it in Smash, and it's like a concept that's in pretty much every single fighting game. And I think it's absolutely like super interesting. Like who's there? It's like putting yourself in a position to make the best first move, and it's such an interesting concept in terms of like a life philosophy as well. Like it's great for practice, and it's like a really good teaching to give people to be working on. So I always loved like that, and I do agree there's a lot of very, very similar concepts. I think that there's like really fighting games in general are not something that I'm naturally inclined to, so I have to find an inlet into it. Otherwise, I am not naturally inclined to like playing those kind of games. Yeah, but I do like the ones that I do play. Yeah,
we'll find one. Well, like either it's Mortal Kombat or it's them fighting herds. I think you know enough about fighting games that you can probably skip them fighting herds, and like go into something like Mortal Kombat.
I think I want a huge deal to me in most of the fighting games. Is actually the art style, and
you're not into ponies.
Well, it's not even that. Although, yeah, it's that it's the games that I've grown up with that I love the most have like some of the best art styles like in the world, right? Like Smash has a billion games that have their own unique art direction from Nintendo, so it's already high level quality, right? Or you look at like Street Fighter 4 or something like that. That game is freaking gorgeous.
Yeah,
there's a lot of really, really strong art, but this is not a cry to kind of hurt. Or trying to like put down any of the newer ones, but I have found that some of the anime fighters are looking so similar, or not that they're looking similar, but it's like they're putting so much more emphasis on looking cool than readability. If you know what I mean. Like they're like I was watching, I can't remember which one it was, so I won't be able to tell you, but like they'll have two characters fighting and they're different characters, but their abilities all proc the same type of magic thing, so I have no idea who's hitting who or like what is on the screen. So like I like games that have very unique like silhouettes for their characters and things that are able to I really like Street Fighter's like art aesthetic, even though I don't play that game necessarily a lot. So like that's what I like. That would be something that would get me into the game in the first place. Like a game that has like really cool art. Like I wanted to play Mortal Kombat because of the art direction that they took for Mortal Kombat 11. I didn't really want to play it before in the previous iterations because that I think, you know, the studio was kind of growing into what it is art style today now through the previous games, right?
Well, there's never a better time if you ever wanna get some Mortal Kombat in you. I'd happily sit down and walk through a few things with you.
I'd get my finishers all polished up. I watched like all the finisher videos, like the one that just has like every finisher in Mortal Kombat lined up.
It's a brutal game, but you know it also has a lot of charm. They added like friendships now, so you get Jax like pulling out a sax and then doing like a facsimile of the epic sax guy. It's great. Mortal Kombat has a lot of style and panache.
I like that they took the Doom Eternal route and just doubled down on like the absurdity sometimes and like and like just like not back down from their history.
The thing that I like to think like Ed Boon said in an interview is like when he asked like, do you ever think you're making everything too violent? And he's like, well, there are some times when we design stuff and we're like, you know, this is maybe too much. So we definitely have pulled back from like certain different ideas we had for fatalities. But the core thing that we always want to do is we never want to make someone feel sad. You know, we never. That's why like none of the characters are really like screaming on screen as they're being torn apart or something. It's just like whoa, you know, it's cartoon.
I could watch pretty much every single Mortal Kombat finisher and not be upset, but if I watch Daoism dance his stupid fucking ass over my body again, I tilt every single time Daoism beats me. Like, that stupid dance is like worse than a Fortnite dance on top of your body.
He reined it in Street of Fighter 5. Now he just meditates over you.
No, I should have doubled down on it. I wanted them to bring it back. That was the best. Like, that was the most. Like,
it might have been slightly insensitive, which is
could be. I don't know the history of the dance, but that original was awesome. You can't change that from Street Fighter 2.
Yeah. All right, let's see what I have left. Right, the hitboxes. Oh yeah, and the thing I want to say is, like, so for Samurai Showdown, because it has such a long opinion, I was trying to get invested in the fighting game community, of which we have one here where we live. Mm-hmm. And it was actually the subject of a very good documentary that friend of the show, Adrian Talons, actually helped out in, along with our, you know her, Melissa and Kyle. This documentary they made called Smash Forward, which is actually about the Smash fighting game community as well, that is here local, and how it has changed and affected people's lives for the better, giving them a place to, like, meet other people, or, like, make a space where they could, like, express themselves, and that's kind of express what I really like about fighting games. So I just wanted to drop that there to let people know that, like, hey, if you also want to get into fighting games but it seems daunting to do it on your own, you're never really alone. There's a wealth of different groups out there that you can be a part of, and I know it's scary, I know it's challenging to, like, get into a group for the first time, but these are some of the nicest and most welcoming people that you can go into. Like, in better times, go to a public venue where they host these things. There's many online. It usually only costs like $5 to $10 to $15 a day to just hang out and play games with like-minded people. So really good opportunity.
Check out my best friends at tournaments
through Smash, eh?
Yeah, like I met some of my best friends through Smash tournaments. It is like a great like, it's cool to have a community where you're all trying to get better at the same thing. Yeah. And that's like a really great way to connect with other people, and most people are very willing to teach and, like, share knowledge and, like, help everyone get better, because everyone, like, and like, even the top players, there's always someone better than you that you're looking up to, that you're going to be like, I'm not as good as this person. So everyone's got a little bit of humbleness to them, or at least they should, if they're a good player.
if they're good people, if they're worth getting to know.
True. Yeah.
So that's, just wanted to name drop that. That's Smash Forward. You can find it. Very great documentary. Liked it.
Nice.
And that's about it I have for fighting games.
Nice. Yeah, I'm down to play some Mortal Kombat one of these days.
I would love to. All right, are we gonna then go to, like, a different sort of fight?
Yeah,
gears.
Much bigger entities fighting.
Well, we don't really need to spend too much time on this since we're running on time, but I think it's important to also talk about, because it is wild to me. It is wild. So, Ken, do you want to describe this fight between Apple and Epic?
Yeah, so I'm not sure how far you've dug into this, but I'll share what I kind of know. So Epic has been working on this plan of theirs for a while. So amongst all of the platform providers, Steam, Android, the Apple App Store, they all charge a 30% fee to advertise and sell your stuff on their platform. And so this is a contract that Epic entered into when they put the Fortnite app onto the store. However, Epic is challenging that in that they decided to put in their own in-app, like, payment system that circumvents Apple's App Store payment system, which is against the terms of service that Apple, like, provides. So what happened was they put it in, right? There was a bit of conversation between Tim Cook and Epic's top management saying, like, not Tim Cook, sorry, Apple, saying that they never gave Apple any warning about this particular code. They submitted code that didn't have it in it, and then they reviewed that and approved that, and then when they actually submitted an entirely different set of code which has the in-app payment. So it's essentially to surprise, like, Apple at the same time. And so Apple responded by banning Fortnite off the App Store, but also going even further, and then banning and preparing to remove all instances of Epic's Unreal Engine in on the App Store as well. So that means like this would have possibly this will possibly affect people who are just using the Unreal Engine to develop other games that are not Fortnite based on the Apple software platform as well. They're going so far as even to revoke the Apple developer licenses to anyone working on Epic, meaning you won't be able to develop an Unreal game on an Apple device. You know how you cannot create an iTunes app without a Apple device. You can't use an Android device to make it. That's what they're going to be enforcing as well.
I hadn't heard about that part.
Yeah, so the litigation is complex in a number of levels. So Apple fired back with this, which is well, let's get into what we think about it a bit later. I'll just lay out all the facts as I know them first. So Apple did this, and then Epic, in a like chess-like move, they knew that they baited pretty much Apple into doing this. They knew that Apple was going to respond in a not just removing the app, but in an overextension of their kind of powers. Because right after Apple banned them from the App Store and the rest of the measures that I just talked about, Epic automatically came back with an anti-monopoly lawsuit, where they're explicitly in that lawsuit they're saying they're not looking for any monetary gains, but they're saying that Apple has produced a monopolistic control over this ecosystem, and puts down a number of arguments to say that they should be able to compete with them in this market and that this monopoly should be broken up. Okay. This has a lot of ramifications, like what I just talked about with all other like Epic Unreal developers. But I don't know if there's any further development upon that. But in addition to Epic's like rebuttal, they had like a video produced in like a Fortnite type video where they mock Apple's earlier, like kind of the 1990s advertisement where Apple was in this same situation fighting against Microsoft, complaining that Microsoft had a monopolistic control over the market, right? As back when Apple was fighting Microsoft in the exact same way. So it is crazy. There's a lot of different things going on here. Like the things that you have to like think about is one, Epic is a giant company and so is Apple. Epic would not have developed an entire app payment system and an app and gone through all the processes of game development to submit it knowing that it was going to fail, right? And then they obviously had like a whole bunch of document and court cases like way in back. Like no one goes up to them and be like, oh, wait a minute, we aren't allowed to have in-app purchases? Well, I just happen to have this freaking like lawsuit ready that has like a bunch of research and a freaking multimedia video produced already on the topic, right?
Yeah.
So they were 100% ready.
A whole Fortnite event even.
A whole Fortnite event. So yeah, that's where it is right now. That case is being brought to the judges, and yeah, what do you think?
Oh man, I don't know what to think because there's so many layers here. I do know the one thing that I am very confident about is that I don't like how they're weaponizing their audience for it.
So who are you talking about right now?
Epic.
Right.
In a way, I think
the Fortnite videos and stuff. Yeah.
I want to say as a disclaimer that I'm usually on board for a lot of Epic's policy. I think they are extremely developer friendly in a way that they do like the 10% royalties only after a certain period of the of a game that's sold on the Epic Game Store. I like that. They are then putting more money into actual development and getting people paid in a way, right? Now that they have this newfound Fortnite money, but
yeah.
That show really not show. what do you even call it? The propaganda piece?
Look, it's a media PR.
The media PR thing where it's called the 1984 app, where they paint like Apple as this tyrant that has this like controlling the means of production and things like that. And then the Fortnite character is like hurling the what that Fortnite horse jockey thing is into the screen, as if like they're breaking the foundations, and they're asking their players to rise up and hashtag free Fortnite. Like, I see. It's a smart move. It's a smart move, right?
Yeah, it's these are both very tactical moves that you have to understand that these are like them or not, whether you whatever you think about Apple, whatever you think about Epic, large corporate entities act like bloodthirsty sharks because they have to in the ecosystem of business, and especially lawsuits. It is a very competitive and very, very serious like strategizing type of work. And what Epic is doing, I also don't agree with either, the whole idea of like rallying your community, but what they're trying to do is sway the public opinion, right? Because what essentially is happening right now is they knew this was going to happen. They're bringing up a case to break up the Apple monopoly. And what it is it essentially a direct attack, a corporate versus corporate attack.
Yeah, this is corporate warfare that we're watching right now.
Yeah, it's 100% corporate warfare.
This is exactly what it looks like. And the thing that I think is important for most people to like realize is that is exactly what this is. Right?
Yeah.
And the problem that I have with like sort of the media ads and like that is when you say stuff like hashtag free Fortnite is Epic is the one that caused this to happen, because it is an attack on their behalf. Like, they are the ones that got their own app banned, right? But they're painting the message as if this is some sort of a malicious attack on Apple, who, like, despite I don't agree with all their policies, I think like 30% royalties is egregious for a company of that size as well to take, even on like small projects. But to paint it as if Apple maliciously took Fortnite off, because most people don't have an awareness of even what happened, right? There's guides on the internet explaining, like, here's a parent's guide as to why your child can't play Fortnite on their device, right? And that seems so slimy and wrong in a way that I didn't think Epic was capable of doing, because you see this sort of stuff happen with them when like, this was all well and good when the fight was to make Sony enable cross-play, right?
I kind of see what you're talking about. I don't necessarily.
So when Fortnite had cross-play between like the mobile phones, the PC, and Xbox, the only one that wasn't playing game was Sony, right? They didn't want cross-play. And eventually Fortnite grew to like a level that they couldn't ignore, and Epic campaigned extremely hard to get crossplay to be enabled on Sony's platform. And eventually when that happened, that blew the doors open for so many other titles like Call of Duty, Rocket League, Dauntless.
So what I think is a bit dangerous, I'll give you the both sides of it, because I don't particularly, I'm reserving judgment in terms of assigning any malice to their actions. I'm trying to think of it strategically as what they're trying to do, because when these companies are that large, like, the cost of malice is usually pretty high. Almost everything is very much like a dollars type of bid, right? And this is, in my head, this is like Epic's gambit to open the market so that they can enter into this like massively untapped market for them. But what I see is that, like, the act of submitting an app that they knew was going to get banned by Apple, like, it's not as malicious in my opinion, because it's very commonly how a lot of laws are changed. Because then what they do, like, this is, I don't want to give this example because it's not nearly the same realm of importance, but like let's say, like, let's talk about Rosa Parks, who sat in the back of the, like, in the front of the bus, right? Like, people don't always know that she knew she was going to get arrested, and that she
Oh,
had
I
the
thought
back.
I thought she absolutely knew. I thought that was the
Yeah,
whole
she
point of it.
a lot of people. I'm saying a lot of people don't realize.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, that she knew that she was going to be arrested, and that she had like the civil rights movement backing her up the entire time, right? And that's the type of legal precedent that, like, the way that a lot of these things work is that they have to submit something so that they can bring this particular case up to like the Supreme Court or whatever to make a judgment so that the rest of the precedent can rule.
Yeah.
Now, that's not to say that this isn't like possibly slimy, because in general, it's a very aggressive business move to go after someone else's business, right? Like if you were a small time business owner and you do this to someone else, this is extremely aggressive, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's like almost normalized when I think of super large companies, because super large companies become almost required to act in a certain way to please their shareholders and to maintain their stocks, just based off of the way that the U.S. economic system works, right? So there, on the one hand, there's that side where I don't find Epic particularly evil for doing the particular case, but I do think that there isn't a whole this it isn't completely like good, like the way that they're painting it, because someone brought this up, and this is actually a very, 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 very big part of the lawsuit that not everyone understands, is that if Epic goes through and say succeeds in this lawsuit, and because of the way the U.S. courts take precedence, this can possibly affect so many game companies, because they're essentially saying that because Apple owns the hardware and they own the app ecosystem and they own the software, that they are a monopolistic company, and that they should be broken up so that Epic should be allowed on their app store, right? Now, what's to say that anyone can now do the same thing with Nintendo, and saying that now I should be able to get onto the Nintendo store because you own the means of production, you own the software, and you own the hardware.
Yeah.
Right? Sony, Xbox Live, for example. Now Xbox Live is a store that's its own ecosystem, that's its own property, right? This has so many more ramifications down a possible larger scope of the gaming industry that, like, to me, that's why it's kind of fascinating, because I don't know what's going to happen when you are starting, like, if the possibility of this case affecting other companies like this, it's going to bring everyone out to the door. And unless it's like a definite throw-out case, and I don't know enough about law to be able to say it is, if there's a chance that this could possibly go through, it's going to snowball into something much bigger as other players become much more vested into this situation, right?
Yeah.
And in terms of whether it's right or wrong, like, I can't tell, because on the one hand, I freaking despise Apple's ecosystem, like in terms of its like user UI philosophy,
or even like control on like content that you can actually even put on.
Yeah, like they control all the content. It very much is like a
advertising,
like a total
marketing.
Vertical slice. Exactly, right? Like it's very anti-competitive in terms of its like complete control over the ecosystem. But I also understand when other people will say, like, they do want someone that's like, oh, I can trust one source and I can like go to them and I know that the quality is a certain level of this, and I know that it's a certain level of security, right? That's also why people go to the App Store, and that's why they allow all of them to all their phones to have access to their credit cards, because they trust the Apple ecosystem, right? But if this precedent is set and it breaks through all these like closed digital ecosystems, that could have a lot more ramifications that are not thought about, that are ultimately like negative.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't think Apple would, or Epic would not know this coming into the lawsuit. So that's my concern, is like how much do they, what are they really trying to get at? Is this just a show where it's like, hey, we want to bring up this matter as a matter of public discourse in the U.S. business ecosystem and laws ecosystem, or is this trying to target one thing by pretending to target another thing?
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't even considered how, you're right, absolutely, this could affect other ecosystems, and that's the part that confuses me about my feelings on the subject, because I think about it and I'm like, yeah, wouldn't it be great if you could put a game on a store and you would get 100% of the profits from it? Wouldn't that be awesome? But then at the same time, I'm like, but they do own the platform and they are offering a service by hosting it. Are they not entitled to some sort of cut on that?
Yeah,
which is weird because that's not normally how I would think about things. I'm very much in favor.
Well, it becomes
guy.
It really becomes muddy because like when we think about typical capitalism rules to keep capitalism in check, like for one of the bigger ones is that you don't let one person control like a full vertical integration of the entire pipeline. You know, this is a big thing about monopolies back in the 90s with business, and you know, the US ruled the other way, that they're allowed to have massive conglomerates that own everything. And look at kind of like where the system is now, where you have a few corporations that own like 50 or more % of the entire ecosystem of the businesses. They control all sorts of production. Because in a regular sense, like if this was like a more like, let's say, ideal capitalistic economy, like Epic could be able to go there and be like, hey, we want to offer you to be able to sell games for 20% and undercut them by 10%. That's competitiveness, right? Like if they're offering something for better for less, then you should be able to go over to them. But the problem is that the users that are there, that are established in a current industry, are already under monopolistic policies, so they can't act. They don't actually have a choice. You're saying that, oh, they could go to Epic and then go to Epic Store, but because there's already a monopoly that controls all of the iPhone market, or oligopoly that controls all of the Android market, there's actually no actual way for them to compete. It's a barrier to entry that is prohibitively too hard for any other companies to come into. Now, that's the argument that like they would be making.
Yeah, right? And the thing that I wonder about that, like me not knowing anything about law, only knowing about how to make video games. The thing that I gotta wonder is not the option then like what store you operate in, because like Epic is offering their own sort of discounts on their Epic Game Store, right?
Yeah, the only thing is that you can't have an Epic Store on Apple, period. They don't allow any other stores.
Fortnite right? is available on their store. Fortnite is available on Android. Fortnite's available on iOS. It's available on PS4. It's available on Xbox.
It's not available on iOS anymore. This is the
true.
thing. Apple took it all off, and it was only available because they did not circumvent their payment system on any of them, right? Like, they did this to the mobile app, so it doesn't affect Sony and Microsoft yet, but they did this at Android as well. And Google is just waiting right now because they're waiting to see what happens from this lawsuit before they pull that app out. But in the meantime, like, you know, like Google has much more lenient about its payment systems than Apple is, where Apple has like a very like vice like lockdown. So
Xbox streaming is only available on Android specifically because of that, because you could buy an Xbox game through the app, and the Android was okay with it.
Yeah. This like, it's very interesting when you insert a different company, because then like, would you be okay if Xbox wanted to have like Halo on the PlayStation Store competing against like Sony Online? Like do they deserve the right to be on the PlayStation Store? You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, they did. Honestly, they are putting Halo Infinite on Steam.
Well, that's different. Like that's like a platform that still Microsoft is making up. They're not trying to put it onto a PlayStation platform.
I know, and that's the part that I wonder. Like, maybe is that even a thing that could happen?
Well, they were
wanting to put Xbox games on Switch not that long ago. Remember?
It like that's like a partnership thing. This is like forcing someone that doesn't want to have your product onto their store. That would be the difference. Like, they're talking about having games on the Switch. It's like, oh, can the developer partner with, you know, Nintendo, and is Microsoft cool with them the
Xbox Game Pass on Switch? Was that the thing they were talking about?
I'm not. I actually didn't follow that, but the difference in that being like, rather than a business transactional deal, Epic is essentially suing for the right to be on the App Store, right, with their own amount. So a part of me says this is really unlikely, because it would set such a drastic precedent. But the fact that Epic did it anyways and invested so much money makes me think that maybe they know something about the law, or they know something about,
it's weird, right?
Who knows what else. Like, I've never felt more like this is like, you know, we're just ants and these are like gods playing, you know, like they have agendas and access to resources, including both sides have access to very shady resources like government people who proposition the government. What are they called? Like,
legislators,
lobbyists. Both of them have, like, every big game company has access to lobbyists, and like, you know, that is a very run around the system type of like strategy to be using, right? So and as a public, we the public don't get a chance to see any of that, so we don't know nearly as much about what could possibly be going out. We can only kind of react to things as they come out. But I'm very interested. This seems like one of the bigger cases that might be brought up because Epic is a massive company, and also let's not forget this also breaks into U.S. politics because it's not a U.S. owned company, right? And there's a whole bunch of politics going around that. So just the idea that these massive entities are playing like 4D chess up there right now, and we're just kind of watching them, and you know, to guess as to what the outcome would be is silly because there's so much information that we have no idea about. All I can say is like it's tough because it almost feels like someone is using a good cause for a bad thing. Like, I agree with the fact that Apple has a poor monopoly, like a bad monopoly right now. I don't necessarily agree that this is the way to address that issue.
Yeah. Certainly not by like tricking the public into supporting them.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I made this example for people who are like defending, you know, people who are defending both sides, but people who are defending the Apple side, I was like, just imagine if Comcast had this level of control over something. Would you let them to have that? Like, would you be okay with Comcast, the most hated company in the US right now, like controlling everything about your iPhone, all the software that you have to develop, and all the games that you have on it? Like, it would be terrible. Yeah. People are very much happy with Apple because they've been providing them with what they feel is an equitable like trade-off for this ecosystem that they've had. But I have always felt that it's ultimately a bad thing, and now this is kind of exposing. It's like when you rely on foundation that isn't solid, this is the problems that can come up. Now they're weak against this because now they might have to make like the choice between two bad options, right? They have to either defend a monopolistic property or company, or they break down and allow chaos to kind of happen in the market, right? Yeah. So interesting. No idea what's gonna happen. Yeah.
Do you think if this works, do you think they then go after PlayStation and Microsoft?
I think that if this sets precedent, then they won't necessarily need to. But I think that's their part of their overall goal. Like, Epic is not doing the best in the platform like type of like industry. Their market share versus Steam and the App Store is like very small, and then they're also getting against Blizzard's like app launcher, and everyone has their own app launcher right now, Origins, right? EA. So they don't seem to have as much to offer in terms of developers.
Yeah. So free games.
They also have the lowest like cost to like to release, like you mentioned, like 10% or something like that, right? But like I think that this might be what they're trying to do, is to open up the floodgates and then have everyone be equal now. And now, like, if they're able to get onto the App Store with their 10% or whatever it is, like, they're going to be able to cash that in through all the different, like through Steam and whatever else too, right? So I think it's a massive, massive win. Like, when they say that they're not seeking any monetary gains, it's because they would make so much more money than whatever that they would might be able to get through this lawsuit, right? If they just win this lawsuut.
So is there a thing like the way they put this code, you would be directly using like your Epic Store account and purchasing through the Epic Store account, correct?
What they did was, like, if you bought money through the App Store, the iTunes App Store, it costs a certain amount, and then they offered a discount if you bought through Epic Store instead within
the app.
I don't even know it's within the app.
You buy it in the Epic Store
with your
and then
account.
It would transfer to your account.
Exactly. It goes to your account, so you bypass that store at all. Gotcha. And they also offered a discount to like whatever the cost is. So it was a very, very aggressive very much like there's no way Apple would have not taken down the app, but because Apple also went down and like went after all the developers and threatened all this other stuff, that it played into their hands. It
makes them look pretty bad, right?
It makes them look terrible because it shows exactly what a monopolistic player would do in a situation like this. Like if anyone is threatening your monopoly, they just say "F you," and you don't get to play anymore, right?
Yeah.
And so that is not a great case, even though I might think that Apple should win this lawsuit, like it just showcases that they've got some some problems of their own.
Well, they took the ball and they went home.
Yeah, they just said that you're not allowed to play anymore, which is their right to do in the current ecosystem.
They do own the ball, right?
But then
like everyone kind of wants to play and.
Well, I think it's just because it's the current ecosystem and they're allowed to do it right now, and no one challenged them before.
Yeah.
And the only person that might have wanted to challenge them made their own competitor, which is Google, right?
Yeah.
And Microsoft is trying to these people who are are big enough to challenge them are usually doing their own product, and then this is the first time that one of the people who are trying to do their own product has now turned and said we can't just grow organically. We have to take a piece of the rest of the pie.
I feel like this is the biggest development difference to consumer difference ratio we've ever seen.
What do you mean?
Well, it's like for consumers, it's like, well, because I can't play Fortnite on an iPad. For the developers, it's like, 20 years of development might change forever.
It's very, very interesting. The landscape of digital platforming has changed so much in the last 20 years. In the last 20 years, we've gone from brick and mortar shops as the predominant way to sell games to now onto digital platforms. That's a huge shift.
Yeah.
The entire market shifted it to that right now, right? So that was a massive shift, and I think now this is settling out in terms of now everyone realizes the new playing field that they're in, and they realize that everyone's trying to wrestle the most control over it right now.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Interesting times you live in.
It's crazy. Another crazy 2020 piece of shit to deal with.
Well, I feel like this is still the least of my worries.
Video games are least of my worries, except that it's the industry that I work in. So it's a little bit. It's the long-term worry. I'm I wonder how this is gonna play out. I don't need to be invested because I have zero effect on the outcome.
Yeah.
But I need to react to the outcome once we realize what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. How long is this gonna take? Probably 3-4 months to resolve.
Not
years?
Sure. Epic put an injunction in to stop Apple from taking their game off before the court order happens. But then if that is allowed, then essentially they'll be allowing Epic to circumvent the App Store until they figure it out, because the in-app payments are already in there.
Meanwhile, they're making cash and money.
Yeah, so they put Epic was smart about this and to put them in a very catch-22 situation.
Crazy.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else crazy happening in your life, Ken, or are we all settled for the day?
Pretty much settled for the day. Just gonna relax now, do some painting.
Nice. I'm gonna go have to edit our videos, try my new editing software.
Excellent.
Figure out what we're gonna do. I got Ring Fit Adventure in finally.
Ring Fit Adventure?
Ring Fit Adventure. It's Switch Ring Fit Adventure, the one with the aerobics video.
Yeah. True. How are you liking that? Yeah,
I literally got it today.
Okay.
It was impossible to find. I managed to get one from London Drugs, which is only available in British Columbia. So.
All right, you have to let me know how it is.
I will. I'm hoping to get fit. I'm gonna get ripped. Gonna come onto this show and be all buff again.
And you gotta upgrade your PC so you can play Flight
Simulator.
Yeah, I was watching a little bit of it. It looks nice, but it looks super freaking realistic.
It looks so beautiful, and I can't run it. It recommends we go to high settings, but then it was chugging. I had to go to medium and turn the resolution scale down to 50%. And even then, I was struggling to hit a stable frame rate.
Don't you have a pretty decent computer too?
Yeah, I got it. I got a 1070, right? And a top of the line at its time i5 card with 3.5 gigahertz CPU. My computer's no slouch, but it's.
This is
Ken,
current top tier.
Ken, I think we reached it. Flight Simulator might be the first next-gen game to come out. Like this, it might be it. It's not available on consoles. It requires a really demanding PC.
True. We can't quite tell because I haven't seen enough. It could just be a very poorly built game. Let's not equate super high requirements to super high quality.
Yeah, it is very.
But it does look very nice.
And it's got like a 93 on Metacritic. It's like one of the highest rated Microsoft games ever made, beating out Forza Horizon 4.
I think there's selection bias there a little bit in that there.
You think so?
I think that there are not any other competitors, and if you like Flight Sim,
if you're reviewing Flight Simulator.
Yeah, like what else are you like? What is the competition? Like, yeah, like Fortnite viewing or something like that. Yeah,
I don't know. I'm waiting for that NVIDIA 3070 card. That's what I'm targeting for. I'm not gonna get a 3080, but I'll get a 3070.
Oh, they're so expensive.
What?
They're so expensive. The cards.
It's only going to be like $1,000, right?
Oh my god.
My TV was double that price.
That's like a PS5.
I hope not.
Yeah, I hope not actually, but
I think this thing is like shooting for $500. I'm excited to get one.
I doubt it's going to be $500. I will be pleasantly surprised if it's $500.
I would be pleasantly surprised as well if it's $500. That's what the current leaks are. But also the other leaks for the other console are all over the place, so I don't know. But all the leaks for the PlayStation 5 one have been pretty consistent, saying normal console $500, discless console $400, which seems insane to me.
It seems insane.
That seems insane.
Like you're gonna compete with Switch prices, and you're gonna have to like beat the next gen level of quality. Like I don't know how you're gonna do that.
I would believe 600 and then 500 for the discless.
I wouldn't even believe 600. I thought it was gonna be 750.
No, absolutely not. No. No.
I think that was gonna be the middle range for me.
No, never. I do not
Never?
think so.
Do you forget the $800 PS3?
I think they don't forget about it, which is exactly why they're not going to charge that much. Like, keep in mind, this is not the most powerful console they could have made. The Series X is.
True, but just because there's new production lines for new types of like chips and stuff that they're using exclusively in the PlayStation, unless they found some sort of means of production that like we don't know about.
Yeah,
and they have
or they're selling probably do at a loss. I would guess they would sell it. At a loss. I 100% think they're going to be selling this thing at a loss. They have pretty much said as much. I would target. I would say. I'm pretty confident saying it's gonna not cost more than 600 USD. And I would.
Okay, I was thinking Canadian, so that's roughly the same thing.
we're gonna pay out the butt for this thing. It's gonna be 750 or something like that.
So it's roughly 600. We were thinking about the same thing. Okay, that was my average price. Yeah.
No, I'm expecting that we will pay around 700 to 750.
Yeah,
for this thing.
Yeah. If it's 500, that would be pretty amazing. I highly doubt that. That's gonna be 500. Yeah. But we'll see. We'll tune back whenever it comes out and we'll review this video.
Yeah. It'll be November, I guess, is probably when they're targeting. Yeah. At least that's when the leaks said. So can't be that long until they do a reveal thing. I'm excited for it. I'm just turning on our outro music here right now. Cool. So yeah, that was the show. I lost my voice there. I lost my 2 lights. You saw my room steadily get darker as I kept trying to compensate for the exposure. But anyway, I'm Louise. That's Ken. Thank you for joining us. Take care of each other. Take care of everyone in the world. And we'll see you right here, beyond the pixel.